Guilty! That nigga is guilty!
Sir, settle down. You have to go deliberate.
I don't need to deliberate. Hang that nigga now! I got the rope right here!
Welcome to 3-Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today we're going to be talking about the hush money scandal of Vincent Kennedy McMahon. We're going to go into a little bit of a babyface and heel situation because I am of two minds on this, and there is a lot to discuss. So we're going to go over the article, and then we're going to get into some of my thoughts and feelings, and then some conspiracy theories as we go into the video. All right, are you guys ready? Let's go. All right, so this is from the Wall Street Journal. See, WWE board probes secret $3 million hush pact by CEO Vince McMahon, sources say. Company says relationship was consensual and is cooperating with the inquiry. This is from June 15th, 2022. It says the board of WWE is investigating a secret $3 million settlement that longtime chief executive Vince McMahon agreed to pay to a departing employee with whom he allegedly had an affair, according to documents and people familiar with the board inquiry. The January 2022 separation agreement bars the now former employee, who was hired as a paralegal in 2019, from discussing her relationship with Mr. McMahon or disparaging him, the People said. The board's investigation, which began in April, has unearthed other older non-disclosure agreements involving claims by former female WWE employees of misconduct by Mr. McMahon and one of his top executives, John Laurinaitis, the head of talent relations at WWE, the People said. The Journal couldn't determine how many previous agreements were being scrutinized. The board's outside counsel was still collecting information about the other NDAs this week, but has determined that the payments total in the millions of dollars, the People said. The board's 8 independent directors have retained New York-based law firm Simpson, Thacher, and Bartlett LLP to conduct the investigation, one of the People said. The board's preliminary findings are that Mr. McMahon used personal funds to pay the former female employee who signed the agreements, including the one involving allegations against Mr. Laurinaitis, this person said. More broadly, the law firm also is assessing WWE's compliance and human resources programs and company culture, the person said. A WWE spokesman said the company, which runs the most famous wrestling business, is cooperating fully with the board inquiry and that the relationship with the ex-paralegal was consensual. He added that the company takes the allegations seriously and is dealing with them appropriately. Messrs. McMahon and Laurinaitis didn't respond directly to requests for a comment. In a letter to the Wall Street Journal, Mr. McMahon's attorney, Jerry McDevitt, said that the former paralegal hadn't made any claims of harassment against Mr. McMahon and that, quote, WWE did not pay any monies to the ex-employee, quote, on her departure. WWE reported record revenue of $1.1 billion last year and net income of $180.4 million, and with most of its revenue coming from selling content rights, including a 5-year exclusive agreement with NBC Universal's Peacock platform. WWE also has licensing agreements with Fox, where we can skip all of this. The 12-member board of directors include several WWE executives and members of the McMahon family, including Mr. McMahon, who was chairman, his daughter Stephanie, her husband, Paul Levesque, better known as wrestler Triple H, and WWE president Nick Khan. Manjit Singh, a former Sony Pictures home entertainment executive, is the lead independent director and is running the inquiry, according to the people familiar with it. Mrs. McMahon stepped away from her role as WWE's chief brand officer last month, writing in a LinkedIn post that she was, quote, taking this time to focus on her family, but that she planned to return. Though his stock is publicly traded, Mr. McMahon effectively controls the company. WWE's securities filings show as he owns a majority of the company's Class B shares, giving him a majority of shareholders' voting power. The Class B shares have 10 times the voting power of the Class A shares, available to regular investors, and are owned exclusively by Mr. McMahon, his family, and trusts, benefiting individual family members, the filings show. Board members learned of the $3 million agreement in a series of anonymous emails they received from someone who said the WWE paralegal was a friend. The first email sent to the board members on March 30th alleged that Mr. McMahon, 76 years old, initially hired the woman at a salary of $100,000, but it increased to $200,000 after beginning a sexual relationship with her. The email to the board alleged that Mr. McMahon, quote, gave her like a toy to Mr. Laurinaitis. The board is investigating the allegations in the email. The people familiar with the inquiry said, my friend was so scared she quit after Mr. McMahon and lawyer Jerry paid her millions of dollars to shut up, the initial email to the board said, referring to Mr. McMahon's longtime lawyer, Mr. McDevitt, who negotiated the deal according to people familiar with the board inquiry. Mr. McDevitt, a Pittsburgh-based partner in law firm K&L Gates, has represented WWE and Mr. McMahon for decades. He defended them in the 1990s against federal charges of distributing and conspiring to distribute steroids to WWE wrestlers. A jury acquitted Mr. McMahon in WWE in 1994. Then they go into some more stuff. It says, the directors received a copy of the $3 million agreement from one of Mr. McMahon's lawyers on June 12th. One person familiar with the inquiry said the non-disclosure agreement provided an upfront payment of $1 million to the former employee, with the remaining $2 million to be doled out over a period of 5 years. People familiar with the deal said. The former employee, 41, had fallen on hard times before joining the company and spoke of needing extra money. Said people who spoke with her while she worked at WWE, she said she had a law degree but had never taken the bar exam, telling colleagues that her career got sidetracked while she tended to a sick parent, they said. The former employee moved from the legal department in 2021 to become an assistant to Mr. Laurinaitis, according to the people familiar with the inquiry. Near the outset of the inquiry, lawyers for the independent directors asked WWE, Mr. McMahon, and Mr. Laurinaitis to turn over complaints or allegations about any relationships the executives may have had with company employees, one of the people said. In recent days, the investigators learned of other non-disclosure agreements involving Messrs, McMahon, and Laurinaitis. They're going to go into Johnny Ace. We're going to skip that. We're also going to skip WWE, Vince buying the company from his dad. It says decades later, WWE continues to portray Mr. McMahon as a critical to the company's success. Mr. McMahon, quote, leads the creative team that develops the storylines and characters for our programming, including our television, WWE Network, and other programming. The company reported in a regulatory filing which lists the potential loss of the CEO as a risk factor for investors. That last line should jump out at you. It should glow in the dark. All right. That last line should glow in the dark. All right. So we're going to babyface and heal this thing. My initial thoughts was, all right, this is just Vince doing Vince stuff. If you didn't know, Vince having affairs, not a big deal. He's talked about having affairs in Playboy. He's talked about having affairs on Howard Stern. None of that is new. But this is where I play babyface. And I agree with all of the other people who are screeching online. You cannot, absolutely cannot have sexual relations with your employees. You absolutely cannot do it. Whether you're the president, whether you're Vince McMahon, you cannot have sexual relations with your employees. This is the stupidest mistake people with money make. As they start to say, hey, random paralegal who works in this office, when you have access to, how many billions of women on this planet? You choose a paralegal who works for you. That makes no sense. For starters, it's inappropriate because that opens up all of these abuse of power claims that you start seeing a lot of people say that he's using his authority and control over her career and all this sort of stuff. The second is just flat out unprofessional. To even approach her opens up the company to all sorts of lawsuits and allegations. Now, thankfully, this didn't go that way. She wasn't, trying to line him up for any sexual harassment claims or anything like that. And we know how easy it is to get slapped with a sexual harassment suit. It doesn't take that much to get hit with a sexual harassment suit. The second thing I want to point out is that if he used company funds, including increasing her pay as she became his sexual partner. Then, whether he used company funds to pay the NDAs, the agreements, or increased her money through that way, that's both of those things are illegal. All right, flat out. So if he did that, he should absolutely step down. And I say this as one of the biggest Vince McMahon supporters on planet Earth. I have zero patience for corruption. Scumbaggery, skullduggery, I can turn a blind eye to. Most people can get over that kind of shit. But absolutely, blatantly illegal embezzling money, we can't do that. Nah, I can't abide by that one. The third thing is things like this really hurt WWE's public image. And it makes doing business very difficult. Remember, on this channel, we've talked about numerous times because it began with the quarterly things that we used to do. I go through the quarterly earnings, not in any detail, but I look at the things that they are concerned about. And they've been talking about sponsorships. And remember, Stephanie was in charge of sponsorships and she left. And I said, is it that Stephanie isn't good at her job? Or is it that people just find WWE unsavory? This is one of those things that falls into the latter part, where sometimes people may say, yes, it's a successful company. Yes, they have a lot of turnover in terms of their audience that actually purchases and participates in companies that sponsor WWE. But do we really want to get in bed with the company who has numerous sexual harassment lawsuits, numerous several deaths on the roster? Hell, they had a murderer on the roster. They had several murderers on the roster. Do we really want to get involved with that? And that is an issue. That's a problem. That's something that they have to consider because business partners are looking at that kind of thing. The fourth thing is that this investigation should absolutely be thorough, and it should also be fair to protect shareholders and their value and the money that they have in this company. It's not just about Vince at this point. It's about the company. And if this is going to put the company in danger to what I just said in number 3, where they can't grow in terms of sponsorships or anything like that, he absolutely has to step down. If he's in the way of the company's growth, they're going to force him to step down. They may have to go to court and do all that kind of stuff because he has so much control and power over the company. But if he's in the way of the company actually growing, he needs to step down, and they're going to force him to step. They'll find a way to get rid of him, one way or the other. The fifth thing that I want to babyface on this is that cheating is absolutely unethical. At the same time, though, are we sure that Vince and Linda are even still together? Now, I know for a lot of people have for a long time suggested that Vince and Linda were essentially living separate lives, that they kind of had a soft divorce where they've been separated for a long time. I don't even know the last time they've even been seen in public together. So in reality, is this really cheating? If Vince was 70 some odd years old, living his life, various girlfriends or whatever the case may be, they still can't be employees, but various girlfriends, then what happened here is not really cheating as much as he's just moving on, and he's just doing his thing. He's doing what he does. Now it's time for the heel turn, because my nigga Vince is 74 years old and was out here slanging dick. You feel me? Like, he's out here slanging penis at 74 years old. I don't care what you think. I hope my dick still works when I'm 74. All that clanging and banging he's doing in the gym, he's not doing that shit for no reason. He's got some of these young chicks bent over the desk. And it might be a little inappropriate. You might not like grandpa doing what he does. But god damn it, you only get one life. Go for it. If she's 40, she's a full-grown adult woman. Do your thing. All right? If she's willing to bend over, let it ride. Let it ride, boss. If you can get it to work, do it. Second, non-disclosure agreements are legal and ethical if, it prevents gossip. That's the point of this whole thing. They don't want people gossiping, mainly because when you are a rich and powerful man, what ends up happening is people try to monetize your relationship. We've seen this numerous times in other industries where people start writing books, they start doing paid interviews, and all these sorts of things. And people act like this stuff is somehow unsavory, that you have something to hide if you have a non-disclosure. It's like, guess what? There's a lot of people who have non-disclosures that you wouldn't, for various reasons. You know, there are people who are within the inner circle of like Beyonce who have to sign non-disclosure agreements. They can't repeat things that they heard or things that they see. You know, almost all celebrities have that kind of situation where if you're in their inner circle and their image is important, you have to shut the fuck up. All you got to do is sign this and be quiet. You see something unsavory, shut up. You know, and you might have something to hide. No. It prevents people from doing bullshit later. Like we saw it with Donald Trump, right? This chick tried to monetize her relationship with Donald Trump. She signed in the non-disclosure agreement and still said, God damn, I cannot keep my mouth shut on the fact that I had sex with the man who is now the president. I'm going to try to write books. I'm going to try to monetize some interviews. I'm going to try to jet set all over the world and talk about this. Ultimately, what I got paid is not enough. I could make more money by breaking the non-disclosure agreement. And that is bullshit. Non-disclosures are ethical and fair. It's a negotiation between you and the other person. You know, you negotiated the price. $3 million is a lot of money for some trim. That's a lot of money for some trim. All right. Shorty probably ain't that hot. She's 40. You know, if you're going to pay $3 million for some trim, it probably wouldn't be no 40-year-old pussy. That's just me. But I'm not Vince McMahon. I'm not 74. Right? He got money to blow. He probably didn't even miss that money. He's not going to miss that shit. Right? So that's what I'm going to heal on that. The third thing is that last sentence I was talking about. The glow in the dark, how Vince McMahon losing Vince in some way or another is a threat to WWE. I can see this in terms of conspiracy theory, that somebody leaked this document and this information in attempt to get Vince to step down because he might be in the way of something. For instance, if they are trying to sell the company and Vince is like, no, I'm not selling my company, then they might say, you know what? We have to get rid of him. We have to get rid of him somehow. Maybe if we tell people that he's got all these non-disclosure agreements and all this kind of stuff, he'll feel ashamed and he'll step down in shame. Those people don't know Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon doesn't have any shame. He doesn't care what people think. At this age, he may step down because it might be very stressful on him. But if he can continue to fight through this, he's going to, without question. Also, it could affect the stock price. Maybe somebody's trying to drop the stock price so that they can buy the company. Because WWE stock is pretty strong. And it came out just a couple of, maybe an hour or two before this whole thing dropped. That WWE stock was at like $63, $64 or something like that. It's pretty high. Now, maybe they're trying to get the stock to come down so that they can make an offer to buy the company. Wouldn't be surprised if we go through this whole rigmarole and whether Vince beats this thing or not, somebody's going to step in and say, how about we buy WWE? Because, you know, public image is not that great anymore. And now, you know, the mainstream media has started to think that Vince is a predator and preying on these young hot interns and paralegals in his office. He's banging all the young chicks. We got to go in and step in and clean up the company culture, as they say. Wouldn't be surprised. That's kind of how soft hostile takeovers actually occur. Somebody comes in and they target the guy at the top. You weaken the company, and then while the company is in a weak position, you swoop in and buy it. So I can see that. And that's not even a conspiracy theory. That's just general tactics of people who work in corporate America. They do stuff like that. The fourth thing I'm going to heal on this, and people are not going to like that I'm going to say, nobody complained. The woman did not complain. There are no victims here. Who is the victim? The whole point of this investigation is to find out whether WWE is the victim. not to find that any woman is a victim. There are no women victims, at least not yet. If it comes out in some of these other non-disclosures that they were sexually harassing women or inappropriately touching them or something like that, that's a different story. I can push that to the side and say, we will wait until those doors are opened. But for this story right now, the woman herself did not file any type of complaint against WWE or Vince McMahon. What this investigation is looking for is whether Vince McMahon used company money to pay this girl off. That's all. Did he use company money to pay this girl off? Now, if they find something else, they'll of course bring that to light. But right now, they're just looking to see if the company was paying for his private trysts with these young ladies. If he did not use company money and they don't find anything illegal, such as sexual harassments and, all that kind of stuff, then they'll probably get over pretty sweet on it. Won't stop it from being weakened in the public image, but at least he won't be forced out of his position. He may be forced into a position, but not forced out of his position. But in this instance, there is no complainer. If you go through the entire story, it's an anonymous email from an anonymous source. A friend close to the people said all this jibber jabber about a bunch of folks. Nobody knows who these people are. And they did agree to some of it. So it's not a lie. It's not a complete lie anyway, because they did admit to some of it. They said this relationship was between Mr. McMahon and this young lady was consensual. In other words, he did have sex with a paralegal. At least he did that. And they're saying it's consensual and she's not complaining. So ultimately, if a third party whom she opened her mouth to is the one who blew the lid off this, she violated her non-disclosure agreement. Now, will Vince actually go after her for that? Who knows? But that is a different thing. I always said this is another part of my heel thing. Vince already admitted to having affairs. This is not a big deal. Vince McMahon fucking around is not a big deal. I could go through the Playboy article of Vince talking about Linda actually finding out and knowing women by name. She was actually able to say names, and Vince admitted to it. He always admitted to having affairs. He never said he didn't have affairs. I think he's been pretty open with a lot of the stuff that he actually did do. Mistakes that he actually did make. So and a lot of people are not going to give him any credit for that, though. That like a lot of stuff that was a mistake or things that kind of fell apart, that he was kind of like, yeah, I kind of fucked that up. He's been pretty open about that kind of stuff. That's what makes people think that he's so weird, is because when he gets to talking, he does say like whatever is on his mind. And then people get like this, Vince doesn't give a fuck about nothing. He's a cold-hearted blah, 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 blah. Or he's just a weirdo. Like the time he said, he wanted to fuck his cousin or something like that, or his auntie or something. Like that was just some weird shit that he said in a Playboy interview. And people just took it and ran with it, So they're not lying. They're not lying on my guy. Not this time. They're not. Now, there may be some other things in here that might be exaggerated or embellished, but they're at least not lying. At least they have the details correct, that he did have sex with a paralegal and he shouldn't have done that. Absolutely should not have done that. The sixth thing I'm going to heal on here, I'm healing this thing a lot more than babyface in it. That paralegal, she hit a motherfucking lick. She had sex with a 74-year-old man and walked away with $3 million in the bank. And according to her friend, she came in the door broke. So through the power of what she sits on, she came out of that situation 1,000 times better than when she went in. So now you see why she's not complaining, and it's probably her jealous ass friend. I say, hey, I want to fuck Mr. McMahon too. Shit, he might give me $3 million, Mr. McMahon. Fuck me, if you will. Because if she walked into that company dead broke, got a $100,000 job, got bumped up to $200,000, and then got $1 million when she walked out of there, and then a promise for $2 million more? You can't go to college for that kind of hustle. College can't teach you how to twerk that good. I'm sorry. Now you see why she's not complaining. She ain't about to fuck up that. $2 million in the bank is, granted he stays alive for the next 5 years or whatever the case may be, but he seems to be pretty healthy. If he's out here rocking your socks, I'm pretty sure you're not thinking he's going to keel over tomorrow. So this is the thing. Seventh thing. This investigation was going on for 2 months before it became public. That tells me that the investigation itself wasn't enough to get Vince to quit. That they added the pressure of making it public. So that means that somebody who knew that this investigation was already going on decided to make it public in order to apply pressure to either Vince or John Laurinaitis. Now, I haven't spoken about John Laurinaitis in this thing yet because I don't care. I don't give a fuck about John Laurinaitis. Whether him is being there or him not being there, it doesn't make me a lick of damn difference. If he's eating off of Vince McMahon's table and, scooping up his table scraps, I don't give a shit. I'm almost certain, though, that Vince ain't, rolling out of the bed in the middle of the night, and then Johnny Ace is there with the fluffer and a fur coat and says, "Is it my turn, boss?" I'm pretty sure that's not the case. I'm pretty sure Vince ain't sitting in the hot tub with the young chick and he gets his old ass out and Johnny Ace slides right on in. I'm pretty sure that's not the case. It's likely, and this is just me speculating, and most of us are speculating at this point, that she went from having a relationship with Vince to having a relationship with Johnny Ace. And then the friend added the whole passing her like a toy, because that makes it sound more salacious. How would the friend know she was passed around like a toy? Unless she was told. Or embellishing it because that last line, losing the CEO, can really damage the company. The eighth thing is, if they don't find anything illegal, there's nothing to see here. Vince is an old man having sex with young chicks. There's nothing to see here. So what? Why be a 74-year-old billionaire if you can't bang some young trim every now and again? To be quite honest, a blowjob every other day at 74 years old, probably the thrill of a fucking lifetime at that point. But Vince is not your normal average 74-year-old, He hits the gym every day. So I'm pretty sure that girl worked for that money, at least a little bit. All right, so let's go into some conspiracy theories. Did somebody inside the company leak this? I say clearly they did. Clearly somebody within the company leaked this. Was it Nick Khan? It's possible, but just because Nick Khan could benefit doesn't mean he's the only person who could benefit. And it doesn't mean he's the person who could benefit most. Again, it could be a situation where maybe it's some of the shareholders who are tired of Vince having all the authority and all the money. And they say, maybe if we, can cost Vince a couple of bucks, he'll sell some of his stock. And if he sells some of his stock, we can buy it. And then we can get have a greater impact on the company. That's one such thing. Pushing it towards a sale could be another such thing. It could also be that. It could also be somebody who was within the company, didn't tell the media, but told somebody else who told the media. It could go through a lot of hands. This is information. Information isn't quite like a box. It's not like a dossier where, there's only so much that can fit in there. When you've got information, that stuff can carry a long way because you're not putting any weight on it. You could tell a story 100 times, changing bits and pieces each time to the point where it's enough for somebody to say, God damn it, we need to look into this. I personally wouldn't give a shit about any anonymous emails sent to my company. Of course, you would look into it because it's impropriety. And then when you look into it, you say, oh, there's actually something here. I personally wouldn't put any stock into the stories told by emails sent anonymously, because you can't double check anonymous. You just can't. The only thing you can do is look at and see if what they said is correct. And in this instance, it was correct to a degree. We don't know to what degree, but to a degree. Would it be somebody like Stephanie, retaliation for being forced out? Well, look, for starters, I don't believe Stephanie was forced out. Secondly, why would Stephanie embarrass her parents? I mean, even if she was mad at Vince or mad at her mama, this would do a lot of damage to the company, and I don't think she would want to do that. You wouldn't damage your own inheritance unless, she was told she's not going to get it and she's like, I'm going to burn the motherfucker down. But I don't believe it was her anyway. So we already went through why. We already went through, is it a lie? How many women do you think it is? That's a conspiracy theory for me right there. I think it's probably dozens. I'm thinking probably several dozen. I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30. And all signing non-disclosure agreements. Why? Because why not? If you can get him, get him. I mean, he's an old man. What the fuck? He's not trying to shack up with anybody. He's probably trying to get that shit wherever he can. He's old. He probably played sugar daddy for a couple of months, got bored, said, here, sign this, and, I'll move on to my next venture. I got bored with her. But I'm going to cover my ass to make sure she can't run to the media and start talking about it. I got a company to protect. Hell yeah, sign this non-disclosure agreement. He probably had them sign a non-disclosure agreement before they even became sexually active, which is something that I've heard that R&B singers and stuff do. They make like fans or whoever sign non-disclosures before they even go into the hotel room. I think they will eventually attack those non-disclosures. I'm talking about in the media, not just in this situation, because people don't like them because they don't like minding their own business. My thing is, unless there's something illegal in there, it's none of your business what kind of contracts two people sign. So what? They signed a contract and one can't talk about it. It's like he's also agreeing not to talk about it because he's not going to talk about it. That's why he don't want you talking about it. It's not like he's going to go around dogging you out and then the non-disclosure is going to keep you silent. He's not going to mention you. You're not supposed to mention him. Yeah, that seems fair to me. So the wrestling media, of course, is praying for Vince McMahon's downfall. They've been praying for his downfall for 30 years. A lot of this stuff is political. And I've said that bright line at the end that, Vince McMahon aligned himself with Trump a little too closely. And ever since then, there have been a lot of people on his ass about his Trump supporting. And there's people who are looking to bring him down just for that. So maybe somebody did get a whiff of something. And then they sent an anonymous email. And pretended to be a friend of this other person or whatever the case may be. But the bottom line is, he has a lot of enemies. He's got a lot of enemies. Because he's very successful, and you don't become a success without making enemies. It's inevitable. I know that all these good, clean Christian saints on Twitter seem to think so, but it's not. Whenever you become a success, there's always going to be people who feel left out, left behind, fucked over, screwed over, people who are going to be mad that you succeeded and they didn't, people who hate that your success, they hate your product, they hate what you do. There's a lot of stuff that goes into why you might not be liked. And Vince has to understand that when you become a rich and powerful man, like a Vince McMahon or a Donald Trump or a Robert Kraft or Elon Musk or whatever, look, notice, this stuff almost immediately comes out when certain people have bad political opinions. All of a sudden they're racist, sexist, homophobes, domestic abusers, philanderers, mistreaters of women and black people. You kick puppies and dogs and everything. And it's like almost right on cue. You're right about everybody. And I don't trust anybody who thinks they're right about everybody. Sometimes, because you never admit to being wrong. And what I've seen a lot on this internet There's a lot of people posting a lot of stuff, a lot of allegedly. You know, the Rita Chatterton thing. Of course, another sexual harassment, non-disclosure situation. The thing with China and Sable and, you know, Jimmy Snuka and all this allegedly. And it's almost as if people don't understand that you live a long life, you involved with a lot of shit. Stuff like this happens. You know, some of the stuff he ain't got no control over, like the Jimmy Snuka thing and the Benoit thing. He ain't got no control over that. Other things that he did have control over, like Owen Hart, he kind of accepted responsibility for. And we have to, at some point, move the fuck on. This is a completely different thing. Anybody who's going to try to defend Vince because he beat the federal government in the past, you're missing the point. This ain't got nothing to do with that. If you're going to try to lambast Vince because he should have been taken down over Owen Hart or Benoit or steroids or whatever the case, you also missing the point, and you a retard. This is a completely different thing. This is corporate malfeasance. They actually do take this seriously. And we can tell that this is taken seriously because the mainstream media picked up on it and not bullshit wrestling journalists. Again, 2 months this story was out there and not a single wrestling journalist picked it up. It got picked up by the Wall Street Journal. Not the Wrestling Observer, not Fightful, the Wall Street Journal. So that's something to take into account. Thank you guys for listening. Like, share, and subscribe. We will be doing the inevitable Smart Tears Flame War segment at some other time. Thank you, and have a productive day. I'll talk to you guys later.